The effectiveness is amazing. The bottom line is it gives your skin what it needs to heal itself. So the other skincare products out there, the plant-based skincare products, not that all, there are some plant-based things, as I mentioned, that are good for the skin. We're animals, we're not plants, so nothing can hold a candle to animal-based skincare. Mm-hmm. And the top of that pyramid is tallow.
Welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast, sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation for Wise Traditions in Food, Farming, and the Healing Arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
I'm your host, Hoda Labrada Gore. This is episode 97, and my guest is Andrew Gardner. Andrew is an accidental expert on skincare. You'll hear the story of how he fell into this and why he launched the Vintage Tradition Company. More importantly, you'll learn the how and why behind the benefits of animal fats which heal and nourish our skin. Over-the-counter beauty products are filled with all kinds of problematic and toxic ingredients. Andrew explains how tallow is naturally beneficial for our skin and bodies. Tallow can help with eczema problems, rashes, psoriasis, and more. It has antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer properties as well. Before we dive into the conversation, we want to invite you to be a part of something special. The first is a chance to give the show your feedback. What do you think of Wise Traditions? What do you love? What could we improve? What topics do you want to hear in the future? Just go to our website, westonaprice.org, and look for the podcast survey button on the homepage. And please give us your feedback. We want to hear from you. Also, we hope you're interested in supporting this podcast effort if you've enjoyed it for this year and a half that we've been going. The foundation is a nonprofit that is member-supported, and the only way to keep the Wise Traditions podcast on the air is with your help. We've set a goal of raising $15,000 by the end of October. If every listener gave just $10, we could easily make this goal, if not exceed it. So please be a part of it, and don't wait until October 31st. Look for the donate button on our website and give today. Thanks in advance. Hey, and last but not least, come on out and meet us in person at the Wise Traditions Conference this November, the 10th through the 13th in Minneapolis, Minnesota. There are loads of new speakers, tons of topics covered, including hormone health, weight loss, and the GAPS diet. Register today and take your health to new heights. Go to wisetraditions.org for more information. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Andrew.
Thank you, Hilda.
Now, I understand that your story begins with a farm tour in Mexico. Tell us about that.
Well, now don't judge me, Hilda, but I went on the tequila tour down in Mexico. and they took us to the field where they grow the blue agave plants. And it was interesting because the farmer was telling us how they don't ever use gloves, but they don't have any callouses. And they said the reason was because they were using a skin balm that they made themselves from beef tallow and from also the gel from the blue agave plant.
Whoa, that sounds so interesting. So here you were trying to learn about tequila, and this, I won't judge you on that. And then you found out that these guys were using something on their hands that was really keeping them soft and supple.
Exactly. And, it's actually because of the Weston A. Price Foundation that I became more aware of saturated fats. And then when I heard this, I said, oh, that's very interesting. Now we've got saturated fats that at least some people's used to use on their skin. So what happened was I got home and I started doing some research. Mm-hmm. And I figured out that people used plant oils on their skin, as a modern person might expect, shea butter and olive oil and things like that. But what I found in my research is that what people used even more on their skin in the past was animal oils. And the number one animal oil that people used on their skin, and this is really all over the world, and this is again gets back to that ancestral wisdom that Dr. Price uncovered. Tallow was the number one thing that people used on their skin, and it's just really works and really is healing to the skin.
Interesting. So there really is a parallel with the way the animal fats disappeared from our diet and they also disappeared from our skincare.
There's a direct parallel, in fact, because they disappeared from both right around the same time. And interestingly, people, when they used tallow on their skin, they really knew what they were doing because the saturated fat composition of tallow is the same as the cell structure of our skin cells. So it's just really biocompatible with the skin and nourishes the skin because of all the great nutrients that are in grass-fed tallow.
So I'm thinking in terms of colors right now. It's almost as if I were wearing an orange shirt and these orange pants match them exactly. Is that kind of what you're saying, but on a cellular level?
Right, exactly. But basically, as with so many things that our ancestors did, you start doing some modern, chemical research, and you find the wisdom of what they were doing in that research. So, for example, in addition to the biocompatibility of tallow, it also contains all of these great, as you might expect, fat-soluble vitamins, which help to nourish the skin. And then also, it contains several different oils. As you know, any animal fat contains multiplicity of oils, like the conjugated linoleic acid and the palmitoleic acid, which all have their own great properties: anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, even anti-cancer properties have been shown.
Wow. So, dude, you did all this research when you came back, and then were you just like, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to come up with my own formula to make some skincare products. Like, were you into this before all that?
Well, no, I wasn't really. Although I got to say that I'm always working out in the yard, and I've always got calluses going, and that's exactly what happened. And then when I did the research, I also started playing around with it, and I came up with a little formula of my own, and I put it on some calluses that I had had forever that were like cracked and bleeding and just not pretty. And it was incredible because after just a few applications, it was like skin again. So I really knew that our ancestors knew what they were doing after I experienced that, because nothing else I had put on the calluses had given me any long-lasting benefit.
Well, and speaking of the other products that you had tried, talk to me a little bit about the ingredients that are in our everyday skincare products.
Well, that's a really interesting topic. So if you're looking at the skincare that you buy just in a regular store, it's in addition to the skincare that you buy in, say, a health food store. They are either the ones in the regular store are usually petroleum based.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've got ingredients that are byproducts of the distillation of gasoline, basically. And they'll usually add some plant oils as well. And they also usually add a lot of carcinogenic, frankly, chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
The ones in the health food stores are a little better. They usually don't have the carcinogenic chemicals added, and they usually don't have the petroleum products. But they are still plant-based. Now, the problem with that is they're using the same highly oxidized industrial plant oils that are in the vegetable oils that we now all know are so bad for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got these highly oxidized vegetable oils that with all these free radicals, and you're putting that on your skin. Well, that's not really going to help your skin. There are, though, also, even in the natural health skincare, carcinogens that are a byproduct of the processing, because they have to fractionate these plant products, and the chemicals they use to do that remain in the product even though they're not on the label. So, and then the other thing that people should know is that the word organic, when it comes to skincare, means absolutely nothing, because it's not, unlike with food, There's no organic certification. There's no control over who can use the word. So when you look at a skincare product in a health food store and it says organic, that means nothing.
Andrew, that is so discouraging because so many of us, we're trying to do the best we can by our bodies. So we think, oh, this is organic. This will be good for us. And you're telling us that the label doesn't really have any weight behind it.
That's right. And like so many things, you just have to look at the label. You have to look at the ingredients and what's in the product. And you bring up a great point, which is that I don't think people are as aware of this as they should be. But what you put on your skin is taken in by your body. So there's no real difference between eating something and putting something on your skin. And if you don't believe me, maybe you haven't thought about these transdermal drug patches, like the nicotine patches or whatever. There are a lot of drugs that are delivered transdermally, and it's because the skin is very efficient at taking in things that are put on it.
Because right under the skin is the bloodstream.
Yeah, exactly. And that was part of my research too, in terms of what are we doing now for our skin, and all of that research about that and tallow-based skincare and the history of it, I put into one research article that was published in the journal, the Weston A. Price Foundation, in the winter 2012 edition. And it's also on my website at vintagetradition.com, because what I did was I developed a whole food skincare based on tallow. And it was actually in that article that I coined the term tallow balm, which actually now is kind of a common term in many circles. And so again, it's pretty neat, because the journal of the Weston A. Price Foundation was able to reintroduce people through this article to a concept that our ancestors knew very well, but that really had been completely forgotten.
Well, we will put a link to that article in our show notes because we want people to know more about the science behind it. You've explained some of it. I just want to ask you a couple of practical questions. One is, I'm afraid that when I use a product with beef tallow on it, that my dog is going to come after me.
Okay, your dog will like you after you use it. There's no question about it. But here's the point. So one thing that you have to pay attention to, of course, is even if you're making tallow-based skincare, and we should probably talk about this at some point, but just the effectiveness of it is astounding.
Yeah, let's go there first, actually, and then we'll get into the other.
Yeah, let's do that first. So the effectiveness is amazing, and because the bottom line is it gives your skin what it needs to heal itself. So the other skincare products out there, the plant-based skincare products, not that all, there are some plant-based things, as I mentioned, that are good for the skin. We're animals, we're not plants, so nothing can hold a candle to animal-based skincare. Mm-hmm. And the top of that pyramid is tallow. And so, as I say, it gives your skin what it needs to heal itself, rather than just trying to cover up the problem, as we often try to do in modern thinking and medicine and everything. So we've seen great success with so many skin issues, not just cracked skin, dry skin, calluses, but even rashes and psoriasis and eczema, things like this. The tallow gives your skin what it needs to deal with the issue that it's got going on.
That's fantastic. So it really is giving you, I liked when you said that we're animals and not plants. I was just picturing some people walking around wishing they were a carrot. There's such a big plant movement in our world right now. Everybody wants to be vegetarian and kind of clean, but we are animals at our core. So that makes sense. So right. The tallow kind of collaborates with our natural being and helps our skin heal.
Exactly. And in fact, interestingly, the Latin word for tallow is sebum, which is the oil that's naturally produced by our skin. So even back then, they, in ancient times, they knew of the similarity between our natural skin oils and tallow. But you were mentioning about the pets. So, again, just like with the bad skincare, you don't want to ruin the tallow-based skincare by doing things like, for example, over refining the tallow.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just, whenever you refine something, you're removing good things. So with the tallow-based skincare, if you use just the tallow, and a lot of times people will mix in something that will soften it because tallow is very hard and waxy at room temperature. So we mix in some olive oil. And if you just have the tallow with the olive oil, you're going to smell the tallow because it has a distinctive smell. Not unpleasant, but you can smell it. But that's good. That shows you that it's working. Now, a lot of people will add essential oils to not only to cover up the scent of the tallow, which they do very effectively, but the essential oils themselves also have their own benefits to the skin. And so that's a nice way to make it more pleasant for us. Mm-hmm. But yeah, your dog's going to still smell that tallow.
My dog follows me around anyway, so it's not the end of the world. Coming up, Andrew talks about other surprising uses for tallow, such as deodorant or wrinkle cream, and find out why it's important to get tallow from a good source. Hey, and a quick word just now from the Weston A. Price Foundation. They're holding their fantastic Wise Traditions Conference this November, the 10th through the 13th. There are really some unique opportunities at this conference that you wouldn't want to miss. One is a one-day seminar from Sally Fallon Morell herself on Saturday. It's all the introduction to the Wise Traditions diet, the findings of Dr. Price, and more. And there's also a one-day master cooking class on Monday. There are also special price breaks, and all kinds of opportunities for you to come for a good price. Please join us. Take your health to new heights. Go to wisetraditions.org and register today. Hey, and secondly, we want to hear from you. There are two ways you can help this Wise Traditions podcast keep going. One is simply to give us your feedback. There's a podcast survey on the homepage of the westonaprice.org website, so take the survey and let us know what we're doing right and what tweaks we could make to make it even better. There's also a chance to contribute to the podcast financially. We have set a goal to raise $15,000 by the end of October. It sounds ambitious, but if each listener just gave $10, we could easily make it. Help us stay on the air by donating today. There's a button for this also on the homepage of the westonaprice.org website. And thanks in advance. Now, you were saying that tallow actually makes a good deodorant too. Is that right?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that it has the palmitoleic acid in it, which is a natural antimicrobial. So there are many people, we have many customers that use our tallow balm as deodorant just as it is and have great success with it. We also actually did develop a deodorant tallow balm where we added some odor-fighting essential oils to it to kind of give it an extra punch. But yeah, that antimicrobial property that tallow already has in it works really well. And what's nice about that is it doesn't have. It's still good for your skin. There are so many natural deodorants that have things in it that really aren't good for your skin, like baking soda or cheap essential oils that are distilled using hexane or extended or whatever. So even just as with everything, even with your tallow-based skincare, you want to really pay attention to what the ingredients are and where they came from, the quality of them, of course.
Well, and speaking of that, where do you get your tallow from?
We're in Colorado, and we have some relationships with some Colorado ranches that are 100% grass-fed and have just great grass pastures at the base of the mountains. So we're pretty lucky here in Colorado. Yeah. It's pretty easy to get really good suet. So I should maybe mention some terminology. So the fat of a pig is lard, and you render it, which means you heat it up and the oils drip out, and that's called lard as well. But with a ruminant, like a cow, a grass-eating animal, the interior fat, which kind of sits on top of the kidney, is called suet. And then you heat that, you render it, you heat that, and the oils drip out, and that's called tallow. So whether it's from a cow or a sheep or a goat or a deer, it's called tallow. And so, yeah, we're pretty lucky that we've got some great sources of 100% grass-fed suet that they're never, exposed to antibiotics or hormones or just anything bad. It's kind of nice because that stuff ends up in the fat, as we all know.
Yeah, our listeners know how important that good sourcing is. Like, we want to eat happy pigs, and you know what I mean? Like, animals that have had a good life, and we want to eat, vegetables that have not been sprayed with a lot of pesticides. So that source, even for what goes into our skincare products, is important. I wanted to ask you, Andrew, if you had any stories besides the fact that your calluses went away of folks who have used the tallow skincare products and seen some improvements in their skin.
Yeah, it's funny that in the very beginning, I gave some little samples of my sort of prototypes to some friends. And again, just saw some incredible results. There was a mother whose baby had some really bad diaper rash and had tried all of the products that she could think of, natural products, and nothing was helping. And then after 3 applications of the tallow balm, the diaper rash was completely gone.
Wow.
And there was another fellow who had a cracked lip. So he had a split in his lip that had been there for years, and he had tried, again, same story. He had tried shea butter and all these natural remedies to try to heal it, and none of it healed it. And then he tried the tallow balm, and it healed it up, and it's been healed ever since. So these were the things that made me realize that this wasn't a fluke. This is something real, and that really works.
That makes me so happy to hear. I just see people all the time who are like, oh, I have chapped lips. Let me grab this chapstick, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, no, that's not going to help you, because that's one of those petroleum-based products you were talking about, right?
Exactly, and that's the beauty of tallow balm. And I forgot to mention this, that in that article in Wise Traditions and on our website, it actually tells you step by step how to make tallow balm yourself. So, if you're a do-it-yourself type person, just make it, do it yourself, and you'll be amazed. It's not really that difficult. Especially if you buy tallow that's already been rendered for you, that's good quality, that smells like tallow, in other words.
Uh-huh.
But that's the beauty of tallow balm, is it's just a food. And so you can use it anywhere. You can use it face, lips, hands, feet, anywhere on your body. You don't need separate products for your face from your hands or whatever, because it's not a harsh product. And by the way, a lot of people find it really amazing how much tallow balm helps with wrinkles too. A lot of our customers use it as a night cream, and just have had great results that way as well.
Yeah, I think I posted on Instagram one time for the foundation something about tallow, and people were like, I use it on my face, and they were raving about it. So the secret is getting out, and I'm so thankful. You're a part of that movement.
I've just been happy to kind of be a part of it, and in my little way to sort of back up what the foundation's been telling people for so long, that we need to be using, saturated animal fats.
Yep. And like you said, the science backs it up. It's not just that we're guessing at this.
Yeah, that's what's really amazing. And there are more details of that science in the article that I keep referring to.
Well, let's just touch on that just a little bit before we go. I saw on your website something about stearic acid and stearates. Can you tell us a little bit about that science?
Yes. So it's interesting because the main oil that's in tallow is stearic acid. I mentioned the conjugated linoleic acid and the palmitoleic acid, and as I said, there are lots of different oils in tallow. But the principal one is the stearic acid. And in its whole food form in tallow is just so nourishing and so helpful to the skin for some of the reasons I've already mentioned. Mm-hmm. But what's happened in modern times, though, is They fractionate the tallow, and they pull out the stearic acid as a single component. And they do use that in modern skincare. But really just because it has sort of a smooth feel to it. And so it gives their skincare that consistency that they're looking for. And of course, once you break it out of the whole food, then and you process it chemically like they do, it's just not something you want to put on your skin. And that's another thing that I should mention about tallow-based skincare is it's not going to be consistent when you make it or you buy it or whatever. It's not going to be consistent like the chemical-based skincare that you buy in the store, but that's what you want. Mm-hmm. It depends on what cow the tallow came from, and it depends on the season and what the ranch and what the cow is eating. I mean, all these things contribute, and the variability of it is the beauty of it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because right now there's a big movement not to waste good food just because it looks ugly, let's say. So right. Those of us in the real food movement know that real food doesn't always look perfect, but it tastes amazing because it's real, right?
Right, exactly.
So it's kind of that same thing. There's going to be variability, but it's still going to be effective.
Exactly right. Because it is always, if it's sourced from a good source, it's always going to have those great oils in it and those great vitamins in it, naturally occurring, not synthesized, that give your skin, what it needs to heal itself.
Wonderful. Well, Andrew, as we wrap up, I want to ask you the question I often ask my guests. If the listener could only do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do?
Well, that's a great question. And when it comes to our skin, problems with our skin are so often an indication of problems in our gut, mm-hmm. as many of us know, because the gut is really just your interior skin, right? So the number one thing you can do for your skin is to eat well, to eat according to the dietary principles of the Weston A. Price Foundation, and if necessary, heal that gut. That's the number one thing. Get those animal fats in your body, and they'll work their way to your skin as well that way, and heal your gut, and your skin's going to be so much better. But then when your skin needs a little extra help, or it's an issue that isn't dietary, like callouses or cuts or dry skin, cracked skin, get out that tallow balm, and you'll be amazed with the results.
Wonderful. Well, Andrew, thank you for this conversation. We look forward to talking to you again sometime.
I really enjoyed talking to you, Hilda.
My guest today was Andrew Gardner, the founder and owner of the Vintage Tradition Company. For more on his company and what they offer, go to vintagetradition.com. For resources and links to what we discussed on this episode, including Andrew's article on skincare and his recipe for making your own tallow, go to the website westonaprice.org and find the podcast page. Click on the show notes for episode 97. Hey, and a huge thank you to my friends at Podcast Village. You all are the best. They train podcasters, they promote and produce shows. Check them out at podcastvillage.com. Last but not least, remember that we are always open to your feedback on this show or any topic. Follow the foundation at Weston A. Price on Twitter or Instagram, and look for me at Holistic Hilda on Twitter and at Holistic_Hilda on Instagram. And thanks.
Did you know that there are Weston A. Price Foundation chapters all over the U.S. and around the world? Chapter leaders help you find good food in your area, and some have meetings you can attend. Go to our website, westonaprice.org, and click on Find a Local Chapter to see if there is one near you. Wise Traditions is brought to you by the Weston A. Price Foundation for Wise Traditions in Food, Farming, and the Healing Arts. The content of this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for medical advice.